Could you hear my cat in the background?
Your cat?
Yeah, my cat is just bawling. He wants
no way.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. Oh, dude, what's up, folks? Wow, people are piling in here. This is cool, man.
Yes.
Getting started here a little bit early today.
Hey, John.
Oh, cool. We can see names today.
Well, because we've got a few different places here, so we'll be able to see some of them, I believe.
Oh, nice.
So
Roy
here,
Brown.
Christian
Christian
awesome.
Nino Gomez Alipar.
Pamela. Clay. Hey, Clay. Tally.
Heck E.
Got some of our Guitar Zoom friends here. Many
Cool.
names I know.
Wow, it's YouTube and Facebook.
Yes.
This is technology. It's so cool. I promise you, I'm not being facetious when I'm saying this is fascinating to me, the way this stuff works. I'm just like, there are people here. They're listening to us live. Much love from Brazil. Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for reminding me of that. Please, as you're piling in here, please let us know where you guys are from. It's super cool for Steve and I. We always get a rush out of that.
My mom is here.
You're kidding.
Nope, she's here. Hi, Mom.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Here's
What's
my
her
mom.
name? Barb.
Yeah.
Hi, Barb. How are you? I'm surprised we've never met. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for being with us today. I'm Dan Denley, founder of Guitar Zoom. This is my good friend, Steve Stine. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
Good.
I'm sure you guys know who Steve is. If you're here, we're here today to talk about some essential techniques. Specifically, we're talking about picking perfection. So picking perfection, absolutely. Picking is an essential technique you need to learn as a guitar player. The better you get at it, the easier it is. So, wow, this is just crazy, man. Just so many people. So today we're actually streaming live to YouTube and to Facebook. And there's actually multiple channels that's happening on the Guitar Zoom channel on YouTube, the Steve Stine YouTube channel, the GuitarZoom.com Facebook channel. Where else, Steve?
Let's see here.
Facebook.
On YouTube, Guitar Zoom YouTube, Guitar Zoom Facebook, the live group, of course.
Nice.
And then it's going to the Guitar Zoom community. I think it's actually going to my Steve Stine guitar group as well. So,
cool.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Today we're talking about picking perfection. Please let us know where you're from. And also, let us know your questions. So that's one of the things Steve and I are trying to do on these live workshops is actually answer your questions as best we can. Try to keep them really centered on picking today, on technique and picking. So if you have specific questions about picking or particular challenges that you're having with picking, or maybe something that you had a problem with, but you fixed it, maybe a tip that you could share with everybody, that would be pretty cool. If you have specific questions for Steve, please post them. We have actually 3 folks, Derek, Matt, and Mike, who are standing by to help Steve and I organize the questions and get to them. We are going to do our best to answer as many as we possibly can. So thanks again for being here. And how about we jump right into it, Steve?
Sure.
Cool.
Okay. So I'll just kind of roll here because my brain gets going. It's hard to stop. But basically what I got here are a bunch of notes
Wow.
that I'm trying to get through as quickly as humanly possible for you to think about a little bit when it comes to picking. Okay. So we're not talking about slurring, hammer-ons, pull-offs, that sort of thing right now. But please, like I said in the last live session that Dan and I did, all this stuff is interconnected. To be able to do, a certain kind of technique, it's always beneficial to, develop strength in your fretting hand and all those sorts of things for these things to work, which is what Essential Techniques is really about. So the first thing really is the pick that you're using. We're going to start really basic, and I'm going to roll through these very, very quickly, but I want you to think about these. Okay. Number one is the style of pick that you're using makes a big difference Okay. So the first things we're going to talk about here are a bit more intuitive. Okay. So not just getting in and how to speed pick or how to sweep pick or something like that, but thinking logically about what you're trying to do and set yourself up for success and not failure. So the thickness of the pick, the size of the pick, there's no beginner pick or advanced pick or something like that. It's just what's comfortable for you. But there's three things I want you to think about that define a guitar pick. Number one, it's size. It's either a big pick or a smaller pick, right? Or whatever it is you like. The second thing is going to be the thickness of the pick, the hardness of the guitar pick, okay? And then the third thing is the point of the guitar pick, the sharpness or roundness of the guitar pick. Now, when we talk about picking, and again, it depends on the style and things like that, but for me personally, and I'm not telling you to go get what I get, but I like a pick that's kind of medium-sized. I like them very thick. I usually use like a 2.0 millimeter. Whoa. And I like the point to be very sharp because when it's quite sharp, it's easier to kind of attack and fight through those strings. When it's round, it tends to slice over the string, and it's hard to get that percussive tone. So again, you're going to hear all this when we actually start playing, but that's number one, is just start thinking about the pick.
Cool. Let me recap that real quick, Steve. Okay. Especially because you got a whole lot more people that just came in. They're just now joining us. We're just barely 6 minutes into this. So the very first thing, guys, if you were taking notes that Steve was talking about, is the type of pick, what size it is, how thick it is, and then the actual point of the pick. So that's obviously the choice of your pick is extremely, extremely important. And by the way, guys, wow, there's a lot of people here. I want to mention that everything that we're going to be talking about today, as you guys are piling in, we're going to try to answer as many questions as you possibly can. Please post them and keep them on the topic today if you can, which is picking perfection. And this picking technique is covered in Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques by Steve Stine. It is available right now, and it's on sale at guitarzoom.com. Title of the course is Essential Techniques. It's right there on the homepage. As soon as you get to guitarzoom.com, just click on that, go over, and you can check out the course. If you decide to get it, make sure you come back and tell us what's the one thing out of that course. Would be so cool. Okay, sorry, Steve, to interrupt you there. We had a lot of folks coming in. I didn't want anybody to miss out. Size, thickness, and point of pick. Go ahead, buddy.
So the second thing that we talk about is once we've decided on a pick that we're going to try, is the angle of the pick. And you can see we have a message right here. How should I, hold my pick at an angle, right? So yes and no. I mean, it depends. But I want you to understand that when you go to pick, and you can see this right here, okay, I can turn my pick this direction, and I can turn my pick this direction, okay? And there's different reasons why we would do something like that. So for instance, if you think about turning the pick this way, and what I'm doing is I'm really just taking that pick and I'm kind of pulling it in, like I'm pulling on a string. So as I turn that pick a little bit, what happens is less of that flat part of the pick is now hitting the string. It's kind of angled, so it's going to slice through easier. So it's going to make the ability to get through the string easier. But can you hear the difference in sound? Mm-hmm. So as I start turning it, I start losing definition because I'm able to slice through the string quicker, but I start losing some of that definition. Now, that doesn't mean that it's bad. What it means is as you start practicing some of these exercises that we're going to do today, I want you to be thinking about whether or not it feels better to turn the pick downward or even upward a little bit. And most importantly, I want you to think about whether it helps you to pull that thumb in a little bit and turn that pick when you start playing things. To be able to get through those strings. So the other thing you'll notice too is right now as I'm sitting here, my guitar is already angled a little bit. So when I come in straight with that pick, it's actually at an angle, right? I'd have to back it off to straighten it all out. So as it's angled a bit here, that's a natural motion for me, is just coming in straight with the pick with the guitar angled just a little bit. And that's usually where I am. So that's the second thing, is the pick angle.
Very cool.
The third thing really quick is the pick motion. You're going to be picking from your elbow, you're going to be picking from your wrist, or you're going to be picking from your fingers. Those are the three kind of pivot points, if you will, as you play. And it depends on, how fast you're playing and things like that. But again, think about it. When you move from your elbow, you've got a lot more arm to have to deal with, right? So when you're trying to pick very small and accurate, sometimes it's hard to move from the elbow because you're moving so much of your arm. If you move just from the wrist or from the fingers, you can stay close to that string. And if you're learning how to pick for the purpose of being faster, the less you move, obviously, the faster you're going to get. The more I try and do this sort of thing, obviously, there's a lot more distance in the way the pick is moving. So the trick is, again, if you're looking for speed, is to try and learn to stay very efficient in your movements. And as you're practicing, start moving that pick around a little bit and start trying to figure out what feels best. So that's just the initial setup, are those three things: pick style, pick angle, and picking motion. Okay? Do you want to?
Awesome.
You want me to keep going, or you
style,
want
angle, and motion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is awesome, guys. If you're joining us a little bit late, welcome. Thanks for being here. Please post your questions. We're going to try to get to them in a rapid fire question and answer session here a little bit later. Everything we're talking about today is about guitar technique, specifically about picking, and everything today that you want to learn about picking. You can just hang out with us and learn all of this cool stuff. Steve's got a full hour's worth of awesome instruction for you. If you want to learn it even faster, you can go to guitarzoom.com and check out Steve's brand new 6.5-hour techniques course. It's called Essential Techniques, and it's picking, strumming. I mean, we'll get into exactly what it is a little bit later, but you can check that out at Guitar Zoom. All right, bud. So we got style, we got angle of pick, and we got motion.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our mindset here. So the first thing I want you to understand is that when you're going to start doing exercises, whether you're playing a song, whether you're using a metronome, whatever, is that you have to properly get your hands warmed up. And we're not going to go through a whole warm-up sequence and all that sort of thing. But when you grab the guitar, if you're going to try and do something that yesterday you practiced for 3 hours and attained, and now today you just woke up and you grab your guitar, you can't get mad at yourself because you're not able to do what you did yesterday after 3 hours of practice. You need to warm up. You need to warm up your body. You need to warm up your brain. You need to get yourself synchronized to what it is you're trying to do. And again, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on all these things, but I want you to think about that. The second thing is when you practice, people will say, well, should I practice on an acoustic or a clean sounding guitar, or should it be distorted, or what? And the answer is it doesn't really matter, but understand that they're for two different things. If you practice clean, oftentimes you're really going to be able to hear those subtleties that you need to try and focus on, which usually means you're practicing at a bit of a slower speed. So you're really trying to get all the nuances. And that's absolutely important. Don't get me wrong. You really need to do that. But if your goal is to learn to practice with distortion, at some point you want to add that in so you learn how to control that distortion as well. Maybe it's palm muting, right? Or string control, or whatever it might be. And of course, I talk about all kinds of things like that in the Essential Techniques course. But those are all elements as well that you want to think about. So practicing clean versus practicing distortion, I would say you really should do both of them. You can take turns and do them differently. So this is the most important thing, and then we'll get on to the exercises. Okay. Cool. So the most important thing is three things: tempo, honesty, and awareness. Okay. You have got to learn to dial in the right tempo to practice these exercises at. Whatever exercises you want. If you want to elevate your playing, you need to learn how to play along with a metronome, or if your, dad is a drummer or something like that, that's fine. But you got to have something constantly available to try and A/B against. People say, well, I don't use a metronome. I just play by feel. Well, that's fine. But it's really hard to dial in. When I was a kid, when I was in high school, I used to run track. I was a sprinter. And when you sprint, when you practice, you're always being timed. And sometimes it comes down to a 10th or even a 100th of a second that makes a difference. But if you just went out there and went, I'm just going to run and then hopefully I'll do good. And you don't know whether you're getting better or not.
Right.
The only way you know is against that timer, right? That stopwatch. So when you run against that, somebody's telling you, no, this is terrible. You need to change your diet. You need to whatever it might be, right? But I know that's the point of a metronome, is it tells you, yes, you're getting better, or we're not moving, or we're getting worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, remember what I said about warm-up. Don't define yourself by your first practice of the day, and don't even define yourself by the practice of that day. You might just be having a crappy day. It happens to all of us. Where yesterday you were rocking and today you're struggling. Welcome to my world. It happens all the time.
Right.
Okay? So just think about that. The second thing is so first one's tempo, learning to dial in the proper tempo for yourself, which leads into the second thing, which is honesty. Do not pretend like you're able to do something to make yourself feel better or impress your friends. And I'm not saying you can't do that. You can do that as much as you want. But if you really want to get good at something, you have to be honest with yourself and go, can I really do this? Am I really doing this, or am I just pretending like I'm doing this?
Mm.
And if you play guitar, you know what I'm talking about, because there are times, where I can pretend like I'm doing something, and if I was loud enough and whatever, again, that's fine. I've never been that guy. I have no interest in trying to pretend like I'm something I'm not. It's all about honest practice. You find that tempo, and you just get in there, and you get muddy, and you start working with it. Okay? So learning to be honest with your practice, which sometimes even means, I thought I was at this tempo, but I guess I'm not. I really should be here. And that's a punch in the gut, but that's what I got to do to make this thing work. Right. And then the last thing about this is awareness. You've got to be uber aware when you practice of what is working and what isn't working. Is your arm struggling? Where are you picking from? Are you getting tense somewhere in your hand or in your arm, right? Is that pick really working for you? Do you need some extra work on some of your fingers over here when you start doing these exercises, right? You have to become aware of the things that you're struggling with just as much as you become aware of the things that you're good at. Because if you don't do that, you don't know what to work on. It's just, I'm supposed to practice 20 minutes a day because my teacher said so. Well, what are you going to work on, right? To get better at something, you really need to be aware of what you're trying to do and how you're doing it. So if that kind of makes sense, that sets us up here. So, Dan?
Dude, this is awesome stuff, man. We've got tempo, we've got honesty, we've got awareness. We covered at the beginning of this the style of the pick, your angle of your pick, and the motion of your arm, your wrist, and your hand. And then we talked about mindset. We talked about whether you should practice with an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. And then we just covered tempo, honesty, and awareness. We're only 15 minutes into this thing, and we're already just crushing, Steve. Well, you're crushing, doing a great job teaching these picking techniques. Guys, if you're just now joining us, thank you so much. I think we're up to the highest number of viewers we've had so far. We're streaming live on YouTube, the different channels here. You can check us out on the Guitar Zoom channel, on Steve Stine's channel, on Facebook at guitarzoom.com, and in the various groups for Guitar Zoom members. Guys, everything you're going to learn today is from Steve's new techniques course. It's available right now on sale at guitarzoom.com. Just go there and click on the big banner at the top that says Essential Techniques. All right, big guy, where do we take? Oh, forgot. If you have questions, guys, make sure you post those. We're going to have a rapid fire question and answer session here. Make sure you keep your questions on picking if you have specific ones. We have Mike, we have Derek, and we have Matt who are helping us get all those questions together. So just post your questions wherever you are, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, whatever. Just post your questions right where you are, and we will read those and try to get to as many as we possibly can a little bit later, okay? So hang around for that. Go ahead, man.
I'm seeing we have a lot of questions about like alternate picking or hitting the right string. There's another one. How to pick fast, all these things. And the exercises I'm going to give you here, and I'm not trying to waste time. I'm trying to get to them. But they're going to help you with these things, I promise you, regardless of whether you're new at this or whether you've been doing this for a little while. But here's the last thing I want to say. This is the last little speech I'll give you, which is you need to be careful to avoid the problems with practice. And the problems with practice are convincing ourselves that we don't have enough time. I don't have 30 minutes today to practice, so it's not worth my time to grab the guitar for 10 minutes or for 15 minutes, right? Or it was a really busy day and I just don't have time to play. Which brings me to my next thing, which is consistency. Okay, you've got to be consistent. If you want to get good at something, you need to spend the time with it. Okay, even if it's 10 minutes of a really good focused practice time, it's better than zero. Okay, so don't tell yourself that. The other thing is developing the wrong exercises. I have a huge problem with trying to absorb everything all the time. It's always been an issue of mine. I try and, learn this, and all of a sudden I'm learning 55 different things at the same time. You can't, okay? You need to find the exercises that work best. And what I've always tried to focus on, which I'm going to give you today, are generalized exercises, not just one exercise for 0.01% of the people out there. If you're already 0.01% of the people, you already know how to do a lot of this stuff, and you know what it is that you should be doing in the first place. So finding generalized exercises that can help all your fingers, or alternate picking, or down picking, or whatever it might be, those are great places to start. And once you get more refined, you can get into other ones. But if you go out on YouTube and start looking for finger exercises for picking, you're going to find 7,000 different videos, and then you're going to go, well, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. And you're going to be lost again. I don't want that to happen. Okay? So if that makes sense, let's go on. Good. So the big thing I want to start you off with exercises is what I call the 3-minute exercise. And I think it's just a really great exercise to do. And what you do is you take a metronome and you set the metronome wherever it is. And again, I'm going to try and help you right now, but you're going to have to do this on your own. But you're going to set the metronome. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pick twice per click. So right now I've got a metronome here that's set at 100. So what I want to do is I want to pick 2 times per click. If I start doing this exercise, or you start doing this exercise, and it's too fast, you have to be honest with yourself and slow down. If you start doing this exercise and you do the whole exercise and go, okay, I'm going to do it a few more times, but I think I can do this just fine, then you need to raise the tempo, and you need to find the tempo with honesty that's going to work for you. So what we're going to do for an exercise is I'm just going to palm mute the 6th string, and I'm going to be doing these down picking. Okay, I'm just going to down pick twice per click. And I'm not just trying to focus on how fast I can do it. I'm trying to focus on how it sounds, how consistent is my dynamics, how does it feel, am I connecting to the click of the metronome? It's not just how fast can I do it. Okay, fast most often equals sloppy unless you really know what it is that you're doing. And you'll get there. But you need to make that connection first if you've never done that before. Okay, so we start clicking, or we start this metronome, and I start doing this. And I'm listening each time it comes around. Now, once I've kind of dialed in that first step of I can feel it, I can again, if you heard the last session that Dan and I was doing, I talked about how you always have to be aware back here of what's happening in your musical environment. I'm never not listening to that metronome, although right now it's kind of quiet in my speakers, but because I got all this stuff running at the same time. But I have to be aware of that metronome. So once I get that relative connection, then I can start bumping this up a little bit and find where I need to be. Now I'm going to go to 120.
So we were just at 100 beats per minute. Now we're bumping up to 120 beats per minute.
So I'm just going to go up to 120, and because I know how fast I can do these things, but I'm just going to go to 120 because that's a nice, comfortable place to be. So I'm going to go to 120, and here's what I'm going to try and do. Without wasting your time, I'm going to do this. I normally would do this for 3 minutes. I'm not going to sit and have you listen to me do this for 3 minutes, but you have to do this for 3 straight minutes. Okay, so I start the metronome. Now I got to concentrate a little bit more and focus on that click. The other thing that's going to start happening now is I'm going to start feeling this. As the tempo gets faster, I'm going to start feeling this. My muscles are going to start having to work a little bit more, right? And I have to be aware of that. So what happens is when I start doing this, I have to remind myself then, just relax. Think about that guitar pick. Think about the fact that it's attacking that string, right? All of those things are now happening. They're in action. They're happening in real time as I do this. And for 3 minutes, what happens is that once you get about 30 seconds to a minute into this thing, you're going to start feeling it. If you're doing it at the proper tempo, once you've, again, made that connection to the tempo, all that kind of stuff, you're going to start feeling it. You're going to start feeling it in your arm. And what you need to be able to do is be able to last for 3 minutes while you do this thing. If you get to a minute in and you can't do it anymore, the tempo's probably too fast.
Right.
Because again, if we think about in the real world playing songs or playing in a band or whatever, you don't just down pick for like 10 seconds and then you're done, right? And even if you do sometimes, you need to build that stamina and that strength to be able to do it for a lot longer. Again, I always think like, this is the wrong guitar tone, but if I was doing like a Judas Priest tune or something like that, I have to do that for 4 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it might be, right? I can't just do it for 10 seconds. So again, we're all looking for different things out of our technique. We're all looking for different styles of music. So I'm just saying, the more you develop the ability to do these things, if you can be up here and the musical situations you find yourself in are right here, you're good. It's when it's flipped around that you're going to have a problem.
Right.
So that's what you have to be careful about. Okay? So that's what we do is we do this for again, I've got it set for 120. Okay? But you do that for 3 minutes. Now, we could keep going to 140 and 160 and blah, 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 but you get the idea, hopefully, because I don't want to spend all the time on this.
So let me make sure I'm understanding you, Steve, and make sure hopefully somebody else out there has the same question. This down picking exercise that you're doing, that you started out 100 beats per minute, you're just doing palm muting, just straight, one click per downstroke. Tick, 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 tick.
No. Two per click every time.
Okay. So 2 per click. And when you can do that consistently without any mistakes, you do that for 3 minutes.
Right.
Ideally.
And understand that there's kind of a prep at first, right? If you've never done this before, the first thing you need to do before you even worry about doing anything for 3 minutes is just, can you pick and listen to the metronome at the same time? Can you connect to that beat? You see, because if you were playing with a drummer, you'd still have to do the same thing.
Right.
So you've got to learn to connect first. Once you've done that, then you can start trying to figure out where in that tempo spectrum you need to be to start working now, right?
Gotcha. Okay. And then once you can do that, then you bump up the speed. You went from 100 to 120.
Yeah, or whatever. I just picked a number, but yeah. I mean, you might start at 80 and move up to 100. Right? Or if you've been doing this a long time, you might start at 120 and get up to 160 or it's different for everybody. But the point is, it's not just, what you don't want to do is this. Okay, so I've been playing for 7 years, so I deserve to be at 170. Okay, that's what I think. So I go, and I have no connectivity to that metronome whatsoever. I'm just playing and the metronome's playing and we're both driving down the interstate and we have no idea who's in what car, right? I'm not connecting to anything. I need to be able to listen. If it becomes a song, you see, that's how songs, if you're going to play a song, it's in a tempo, whether we like it or not. My ability to play that song is going to be based off my ability to do the techniques at that speed, my ability to listen to the song, memorize the song, all that kind of stuff. But that's what it comes down to. Okay?
Love it. So guys, we're if you're just now joining us, and actually these numbers just keep going up. We've been on here for almost 30 minutes now, and we're I think at a record view here in terms of live people watching at the same time. So if you just joined us, guys, welcome and thank you so much for being here. Please tell us your name and where you're from. Stephen, I'd love to see that. Also, if you have any questions about picking technique, please submit them wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and post them there. We have some people that will help us put together all the questions. We're going to do a rapid fire question and answer session a little bit later. And everything that you're learning today, today's topic is picking technique. We're calling it picking perfection. And if you want to learn that, keep watching. If you want to learn it even faster, go to guitarzoom.com and check out Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques It is it's like 6.5 hours long, and picking is just one of the techniques that's taught in that course, available at Guitar Zoom. All right, bud. Where do you go from here?
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is do the exact same thing, but we're going to use alternate picking. Now, understand that they are two completely different sides of the coin. When you down pick, you're developing uber amounts of strength and stamina when you do this over time. Alternate picking is a little bit different because it's actually kind of a relief from that, because you're able to use the up strum and not just these down motions, right? You're able to implement that alternate pick, that up strum. So when you start doing alternate picking, understand that it's not a better substitution for down picking. You should learn how to down pick as long and as fast and as accurate as you can to develop those muscles. When you want to alternate pick, a lot of people think, well, an alternate pick is just twice as fast as down picking. And that's not true. If you think about it, it's like running on one leg. If you try and run on one leg as fast as you can, and then you run on both legs, you're going to go way faster using both legs than you would with one leg. And the same thing happens here. So what we do is we take the metronome again, and we set the metronome. And again, they're going to be different tempos, right? Your down picking is going to be its own world. Your alternate picking is going to be its own world. But with alternate picking, you want to, again, first start off by making a connection. So I'm going to have it at 120. It's just a hypothetical here, but if I start playing. And again, what I'm focusing on is, what does it sound like? How does it feel? Am I connecting to the metronome, right? Am I making these? It's not, can I do it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or how fast I can do it? Am I making a connection to the metronome? Once I get in that zone where I'm able to hear and I'm able to feel, right? And I'm able to sense the dynamic of the down and the up, kind of balance things out, think about my attack, all that kind of stuff. Once I get that dialed in, then I can start elevating that metronome again, right? So let's say I go back to 170. And again, I dial it in. Now, I'm not going to feel as much pain as I did doing the down picking with a 3-minute exercise with this. It's more of a synchronization thing. Okay, so it's a different kind of thing entirely, but it's very much an efficient way of learning how to do your alternate picking and your down picking. So that's the second thing to work on for those of you that are asking about alternate picking.
Awesome. So we've covered a lot, but just in this picking exercise, we covered down picking, guys. And Steve talked about the 3-minute exercise, and then we've just talked about alternate picking and where we're going to go from there.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to start talking about individual fingers. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you're going to be able to rewatch this video, and I go into more detail in this in the course too, in the guitar course. But let's say you start trying to develop your fingers, and a really great way to do this is think about 2-finger combinations, 3-finger combinations, and then ultimately 4-finger combinations. Now, how often do we play scales where we're using all 4 fingers all the time? Almost never, but it makes for a great exercise. But we do play 2-finger and 3-finger combinations constantly when we're playing pentatonic or diatonic scales. So this is just a really great way to try and synchronize your left hand and your right hand. You see, before we were just working on picking itself, just raw picking, no hand, no fretting hand at all, just picking. Now we're going to implement this fretting hand. So the first thing I do is I just simply start trying to play my first finger and my second finger, and I just make a very simple exercise where I'm just simply playing down, up through all of them. Now, could I just play them down? Absolutely. You can do whatever it is you want to develop an exercise routine that works for you. But I'm going to do alternate picking for this. So I'm going down, up. Now think about all the different things that are happening here besides the fact I'm doing alternate picking. I have to control all 6 strings as I play, right? I have to have string control so it doesn't sound like that, right? The second thing is I've got to have this handoff, and again, I'm going to use track as an example when you're running like a relay, right? And you've got to hand off the baton. I've got to connect to the next string in sequence so it sounds comfortable as I play. I've got to get used to being able to shift my fingers. I can't go, right? So there's a lot happening there. It's not just how fast can I do it. Again, It's an intuitive thing. I've got to make a connection. And then what I do is I move up and I'm going to go down. And then move over and go up. Move over and go down. And again, there's a tempo, there's a speed, all those things, but the first thing I need to do is make that connection. Now, to summarize this, because I don't want to take way too much time here, I could do this exact same thing with 1 to 3, with 1 to 4, and dig these. 2 to 3, 2 to 4, and 3 to 4. And these are crucial because when you play guitar, most of the time people spend time on strength of these two fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or the first finger with any combination. When you get to these guys, this is where everybody starts suffering. When you get to these guys, this is where awful things start happening. Fingers aren't developed enough. So you don't always want to grab your guitar and go, okay, I'm done, right? You want to be able to get into the thick of the ugliness of some of these. Or you see,
that looked hard.
It's learning how to do those things. And again, I'm not focusing on speed at this point. What I'm focusing on is synchronicity. And I saw some people even mention this. It's left and right hand synchronicity. The way I think about this, and I talk about this in the guitar course, but for me, my left hand is my fretting hand. My right hand is my picking hand. If you play swapped over on the guitar, then it would be different for you. But I have to develop strength and stamina and speed through legato exercises with my left hand. Mm-hmm. I have to develop the availability of being able to pick. Alternate pick, down pick, sweep, whatever it is, hybrid pick, economy pick, whatever it might be with this hand. And then I've got to learn how to meet these two in the middle and make it work. That's what playing is all about. So it's not just picking. You might be able to pick incredibly fast, but if this hand isn't strong enough to keep up, it's not going to make any difference. So it isn't always just about speed. It's also about connectivity, which I keep talking about during this thing, but it's important. Okay, you've got to make a connection with your fingers to your pick to be able to do these sorts of things before you ever worry about how fast you're going to go. So those are really great 2-finger exercises that you can do that aren't overly complicating. They don't have to be fast. And I know I'm kind of running through it, but we don't want to be here for 3 hours. So, but understand that those are your exercises: 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. And then I just set my middle finger down. You could, go to whatever fret you want, but 2, 3, 2, 4, and then 3, 4. And you just practice all those. That stuff will set you up for 3-finger exercises. And that stuff will set you up for 4-finger exercises, because 3 fingers are just 2 combinations of 2. 4 fingers are just 3 combinations of 2, right? That's what you're doing every time. So the more you develop the independence in all of those fingers, I'll do a lot of things where I play, if you're playing diatonic scales, for instance, right? When you play stuff like that, you're playing groups of 2, right? That's how all this stuff works. So I've got to develop these finger combinations for them to be able to work individually, let alone collectively when I start putting them together.
It's awesome stuff, man. Guys, today we're talking about picking perfection. And it's an essential technique that you absolutely need to know. Picking will help you in every aspect of your playing, and doesn't matter if you play acoustic or electric or blues or rock or anything in between. Picking is something that every guitar player needs to know. If you're just now joining us, guys, thank you for being here and welcome. Let us know where you're from. We're about halfway through, a little over halfway through right now. Steve, I was wondering if we could take a minute and maybe answer some questions that people may have. Hopefully we've got some, let me just check real quick to see how they're doing. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of questions. So guys, look, we're going to try to answer as many of these as we can. If you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube or some other platform and you're watching this, just post your question right there wherever you are in the comment section. Also, if you're joining us late and you're like, man, I can't believe I missed half of this, don't worry. We're going to take all of these videos for you and put them on the Guitar Zoom channel in a nice, tidy playlist. And it'll be called something like Essential Techniques. And but right now we are live. So please answer or ask us any questions that you have regarding picking. That would be awesome. And if you'd like to learn this style that this technique that Steve's talking about here, stick with us until the end. This whole entire thing today is about picking. If you want to learn it even faster, check out Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques. It's available at GuitarZoom. Steve, if you could, before we go into the questions, do you mind if I share your mind map of how you create courses with people?
Sure.
Do I have? This is going to be cool, guys. This is actually the behind the scenes stuff that we really don't share with folks very much. How do I do that? Share screen? Okay. So when Steve actually creates, Steve, let me know if you can see the mind map.
Hold on a second here. I can't hear you then. I'm not sure why.
Oh, I see like a million of me going everywhere. Let me unshare that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that.
So if I click, let me try again. Share. Did that work? Can you see it? No.
There it is.
You see it now?
I do see it, yeah.
Guys, if you can see the screen share that I'm sharing with you right now, this mind map that Steve created on all these essential techniques, just put like yes in the comment or something. Just make sure we're good. But anyway, I was going to show you, this is the mind map that Steve actually sits down and creates his process for creating courses for you. You can see this is actually created before we even named this new course. It's just called Technique 2020. We knew it was going to come out this year at some point, didn't know when. The title of the course is Essential Techniques. If you take a look at this is the way that kind of Steve's brain works. So we're actually looking at the way Steve Stine's brain works when he's planning out an entire course. So he's got this intro discussion. He's got guitar and setup and your amp setup. Then he jumps into chords, open chords, power chords, bar chords. Then he goes into strumming and rhythm. And actually the first workshop that we did was on rhythm. So if you missed that one, just go to the playlist on YouTube or into the Facebook group and you'll be able to see that. All the different strumming techniques. Today we're actually talking about picking. And that's this section down here. And if you can see, when he was talking about the 3-minute exercise, remember we just covered that, the 3-minute exercise on the down picking only, that's right here. You'll see that one. There's also a 30-second exercise, a 60-second exercise, developing consistency. And then there's this is just down picking. And then he did talk about alternate picking, all these different harmonics and string deadening and funk strumming. There's fret hand development in this course. Then there's some other things like, for example, this thing is huge. It's 6.5 hours long. There's vibrato. There's a whole section on vibrato. There's a whole section on bends, whole bends, half bends, 3 frets, blues, unison, harmony, pre-bends, and ghost bends, double pumps, etc.
There is a part on speed picking somebody asked. So
okay, cool. Hand synchronization. So legato versus staccato. Picking through string changes, economy picking basics, speed picking fundamentals. Then there's a whole entire section just on slides. Then arpeggios, then string skipping, octaves, 2-hand tapping, a whole section on tapping. Look at all that. And then harmonics, natural harmonics, artificial harmonics, pinch harmonics, dynamic tools, guitar tone tools, sound effects, finger picking, hybrid picking, capo. You guys get the idea. This thing is massive. It's called Essential Techniques, and it's available at GuitarZoom, and it's on sale right now. If you'd like to go check that out. Steve, can we get to some questions? Are you up for that, my friend?
Absolutely. I'm just not sure why that's so weird. Yeah, I'm up for questions for sure.
Okay, guys, if you have any questions, please post them and let us know. Please keep it to picking, and we'll do our best to get to those. All right, Steve, here we go, man. There is a massive amount of questions on here. I'm just going to start at the top and just see if we can rapid fire some of these. So Gary says, oh no, I'm sorry, Greg. Greg says string gauge versus picking speed. I guess you know what that means?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you have to. The most important thing is an understanding that you don't spend all of your time just speed picking, right? The strings have to be responsive to the chords you're playing, all kinds of different things as well. But you got to find a balance. So I like really thin guitar strings, but if I get them too thin, it's hard for me to speed pick because the string becomes too flexible. So I usually have to bump up like a half size from there to do my speed picking. So it does make a difference for sure. So you want to practice all your things. Don't just go to a thicker gauge string just for your speed picking. Make sure, especially like bending and things like that, that you're able to comfortably do all of your manipulation of bends and vibrato and stuff like that at the thickness of string you're looking for.
Nice. Bob from the UK says, how to practice speed picking?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways, but obviously developing that alternate picking like we talked about is huge. But one thing you can do, speed picking generally relies on 3-note per string patterns. So just super quick one you can do that, it's a Paul Gilbert staple that every shredder on the planet has learned, including myself, which is you go anywhere on the guitar, but let's just go to the 12th fret. I'm going to play 12, 13, and 15 with my first, middle, and pinky. Alternate picking. And then I go to the 12th fret of the first string with an upstroke. So I'm going down, up. Again, just down, alternate picking the whole time. And then I go backwards. And you learn to develop that technique because when you play scales, that's what you're playing. Oftentimes it's 3-note per string. And if you can train your hand to simply do alternate picking the whole time, it doesn't care whether it's starting a string on a down or an up because you train yourself to simply move your pick back and forth.
Nice. Chris Sherwood says, what about keeping fingers from touching other strings?
Well, sometimes you want that to happen and sometimes you don't. Like if I'm playing and I'm soloing, okay, I often want to touch all those other strings because I want to deaden them out so they're not making noise when I'm playing. Mm-hmm. If you're touching other strings, like for instance, when you're playing a chord or something, you've got to think about the angle of your wrist, the angle of your elbow and your shoulder, right, to be able to get that, even the angle that your guitar is at, whether it's up or out, right, those sorts of things, to find a way that feels most comfortable so you're missing the strings that you don't want to touch. Like if I'm going to play something like that, let's say I'm playing 5, 7, 9, and then open. I can't be at this angle. I'd be touching everything. I've got to turn under to be able to give myself room to be able to reach that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Martin says, Steve, do you consider the material used for the pick, nylon, Tortex, etc., does it change the sound?
It definitely changes the sound. I don't pay a lot of attention to that, to be honest with you, but it does. I find the most important thing for me is finding a pick that feels good and is very responsive to the way that I like to pick. And the material that it's made out of really wouldn't make that much difference to me personally. But does it make a difference? Absolutely. I'm just lazy in that department because for me, everything comes down to how it feels. More so than like when I buy a guitar, I don't even pay attention to what the body is made out of or something. It's just if it feels good, I'm in. And that's kind of always been my thing. But do they make a difference? Yes.
Awesome. Andy Lopez says, what gauge strings do you recommend for beginners to intermediate as they strengthen picking and other techniques?
Well, I think a good place to and everybody's different, but I mean, obviously a good place to start if you're tuned standard is just start with a standard old 9-gauge string. Mm-hmm. And then if you need to go thicker, like I'm only 5'2", so I don't play the game of trying to use 11-gauge strings and all that kind of stuff. I just want to enjoy myself. I just want to enjoy playing.
11-gauge.
But awesome. Like I had a student in my guitar classes that he's like 6'7". He's a big guy. Yeah. He probably doesn't have 9-gauge strings on anything, right? Because 10 or 10 and a half is probably feels like a 9 to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everybody's different that way, but if you're just an average sized person, I think nines are a good place to begin. And then try things. I always tell people, keep the wrapper of the strings that you bought. So next time you go in, if you think, I'm going to try something heavier, you know what you bought, you know the brand, you know the gauge, you know everything about it. And you can just go into your guitar store and go, these are what I had last time. I'd like to try something a little bit heavier. And they give you something, you go home, you try it and go, I love these or I hate these. And if you hate them, go back to what you had before or try something else. It's a journey.
I love it. Matt says, my natural tendency is to hold my pick with my middle finger. Is that a bad habit?
Well, again, you need to work with what works best for you. But for me, I use these other fingers for stuff, whether it's switching my toggle switch, whether it's rolling my volume, whether it's hybrid picking, using my pick and my middle finger at the same time when I play. Those are crucial. If I was holding it like this, I don't have that finger available anymore. And I don't know what I would do with that finger, So,
right.
And that's the same thing with people that say, well, can I put all my fingers on there at the same time or whatever? Again, whatever works for you, but understand that the more you grip, the tighter you do this, the less you're relaxing. And the less fingers you have available for other things that you might be using those for.
Got it. Here's one, Steve. Anything I can do to practice picking accuracy without my guitar in my hand? I'm at work most of the day.
Well, there's a couple things you can do. I keep looking around because it used to be in my room, but it must be upstairs in my suitcase. But I have this little thing called a shred neck. It's about that big. And I bring it on airplanes and different stuff like that. And I use that to practice with when I do my alternate picking or when I do my legato stuff. Different things like that. It helps more than nothing. Like, just
Sure.
sitting around, trying to do things like this, that's more for strength and flexibility and things like that you can do when you don't have something with you to practice. From a technical perspective, like actual picking and things, you can work on stuff like this. But if you didn't have something for me, that's when I'd work on visualization of my fretboard, a scale on my fretboard, or theory. Like if I don't have something with me, those are things that I really love to work on. Is I'll just take a piece of paper that's got, some mode written out on it, and I'll just sit and study it. Or I'll listen to a song and I'll sit and analyze it. Like that kind of stuff is stuff I do when my guitar isn't in my hands.
Nice. Lane says, do you recommend anchoring your middle or ring finger or both on the scratch plate?
I wouldn't recommend it, but if it happens naturally for you, then that's what I do. I don't float like a lot of people do. I don't float. I have a tendency to stabilize with my pinky or with my third finger. They kind of trade off depending on which string I'm on. But I do that. But I have a lot of friends that don't do that. So I think, again, it depends on what feels best to you.
Got it. Matthew says, will Steve be covering the technique of picking while also finger picking with middle and ring fingers? So I think the question is, do you cover finger picking in the Essential Techniques course?
Well, I cover finger picking, but what he's talking about is hybrid picking with two fingers along with the pick.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And I talk about hybrid picking with the middle finger, but not with the middle and the third finger, just the middle finger. Most of the players that I watch and things like that, they have a tendency of using the new modern way of playing with that middle finger along with a pick. But we do talk about finger picking as well in the course.
Got it. This is a good one. Aaron Henderson says, what is your recommended beats per minute for initially starting with a metronome? 60, 30?
Well, I wouldn't go way too slow. I mean, if you go so slow that you can't feel it, it becomes really hard, right? Okay. If I was to go to, let's say I go to 80. I go. Now remember, you're trying to click 2. Done. So you always want to feel a reaction. It's like throwing a ball and having it come back to you. 60's fine. When you start getting down to 30 and things like that, it's really slow. And understand, the first thing you have to do is you have to make sense in your head of what the tempo is trying to tell you. Before you ever grab your guitar and your guitar pick and start playing, you need to hear that action and reaction of that, what we call eighth notes. Click, click, dun, 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 dun. And you've got to make a connection to it. Grabbing your guitar is not going to help that. It's got to be a concentration thing. You've got to hear it and even visualize it. And then you grab your guitar and you start playing along. But again, even that takes time. Just learning how to play and hear at the same time, separating your thought process to be able to act and react at the same time, it takes time.
Awesome. Steve, this is a question. He says, I hope it ain't shameful to ask, but I still don't know how to hold a pick correctly. Would you please demonstrate it?
Sure.
I think a lot of people don't.
And again, I can only
no shame in that.
as best as I can. But basically, if you think about it, if I was pointing at you and I put the pick on my finger and I was pointing the pick towards you, so I'm pointing at you and the pick is pointing toward you, right? And then I turn that pick, I turn my finger in my pick. I'm just holding it on top so it doesn't fall. But I turn the pick and grab on. That's basically how I hold a pick. I hold the pick with very little pick sticking out the end of the pick. I don't hold the pick in the center. Okay. If you use, like I saw a couple people mention Jazz 3, if you use something small like a Dunlop Jazz 3, then I'm holding it mostly in the center because the pick is smaller. Mm-hmm. But I have smaller hands. If I grab a regular size pick, like these are picks that I use, and they're a little bit bigger size. I've actually learned over the years to I used to use Jazz 3s for years. For 15 years, I used Jazz 3s exclusively on the road and everything. And then I kind of went back to a larger size pick, not a real big one, but just kind of a medium size pick. And I tend to grip closer to the end of the pick. But I do it by, again, pointing the pick toward you, pointing the finger toward you, and then grabbing on top. And then I'm ready to go. I'm just grabbing closer to that tip of the pick.
Awesome. I'm totally going to butcher this person's name, but I'm going to try. It's Aftab Latif. He says, I just purchased your course. Looking forward to start practicing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys' support and your support in particular. I do want to mention, guys, if you decide to get Steve's new course, Essential Techniques, it's at guitarzoom.com. Please come back and tell us what's the one thing that you want to learn from it. Why did you decide to invest in the course? And what's the one thing that you want to get from it? Because it just takes one big aha and it makes it totally worth it. You know what I mean? We're covering just one section of this thing, which is picking technique today. But there's lots of other topics in the Essential Techniques course. Let's see. Hey, Steve, have you found it better to use wrist more? I'm sorry. David says, have you, Steve, found it better to use wrist more for fast, accurate down picking?
Yes. For me, yes. It's different for everybody, but for me, it's like this. It's not this.
Got it.
It's this. I don't know if you can see the screen, but just real quick, I have Harshada's message on here. It says, I feel demotivated nowadays in playing guitar, even though it's lockdown going on and we have plenty of free time to play. I couldn't stress more how important it is, regardless of what's going on in your world, to stay motivated. The thing about technique and all the stuff that we're talking about is these things are essential, okay? But balance these things out with things that excite you, things that inspire you. Maybe it's writing a song. It doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if everybody's going to hear it, right? Have fun. Remember why you grabbed the guitar in the first place. Keep reminding you, especially when you get older like me, right? Remind yourself why you grabbed the guitar in the first place. Stay motivated. Maybe learn a song. It doesn't matter whether it's a hard song or it fits into whatever. Try and throw those parameters away once in a while and just remember to enjoy yourself a little bit. You've got to stay motivated. Maybe motivated means listening to a new style of music or a new album by an artist that you like. Or maybe it's trying out a different style of music that you've never done before. Or maybe it's not even playing guitar. Maybe it's just watching some videos or a concert of something that, with Van Halen's passing, it's been so tragic, yet so many of us have gone back and went, man, that was good stuff, right? It was good stuff. And you look up a concert from, 1985, right, on YouTube, and you're watching it and you're like, man, it's good stuff. That's inspiring to me. Think about those things.
Jamie Williams says, how to strengthen the third and fourth finger. Steve, I think I'm just going to turn that back over to you. Guys, we already covered this exact same thing. The only reason I'm bringing this up, in case some of you may have joined us a little bit late, please, we're actually live right now, so obviously we can't go back in time. But at some point, these sessions that we're currently doing for you, this workshop on techniques is going to be available on the YouTube channel. in a nice, neat playlist for you. So you can go back and watch the entire thing. But we covered this exact question just a little bit earlier in here. Maybe Steve will show you the shortened version of it. Or do you want to, or not, Steve?
Sorry, I was reading another question I'm going to get into. What is
just
the
how to strengthen the third and fourth fingers, basically.
Well,
your
this
finger
is
exercise
thing, right? This is a legato thing, but a great way of strengthening your third and fourth fingers is to do legato exercises. And again, we go into all great detail in the course on how to do that. But you start learning to develop independent fingers. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 4. And then you use 3 combinations, like you might be doing 1, 3, 4. But strength doesn't come from picking. Strength in the picking hand comes from picking. But strength doesn't happen because you're doing finger exercises with synchronization. Strength comes from legato exercises. That's where your strength comes from. That's why you develop this hand and you develop this hand. Once you've developed those, they can come together and start working together. But if you're struggling with strength with your third and fourth fingers, it's not just going to go away because you're adding a pick in, right? Mm-hmm. It might soften the blow a little bit because the pick is able to kind of do some of the work. But the more you strengthen those fingers, the easier the whole process is going to be.
Yeah, there's an actual, I'm looking at the mind map, which I shared a little bit earlier, that Steve created, that he used to develop the course. There's an entire section just called legato techniques. So it addresses that exact thing that you're talking about right there. So if you're having a problem with that, essential techniques, the course will definitely address that. Joey says, when I do alternate picking fast, the pick sometimes sticks on a string. How to overcome that?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. That's a very common thing. You might think about your pick angle, your down-up pick angle, right? Like, let's say I'm doing 3-note per string, for instance, okay? So I'm just going to be in A major here. So if I was to angle the pick downward, like this, understand when I do down, up, down, when I finish that down, the pick is already sunk into the guitar. Right? So now if I need to start with an up, I need to pull it back out to get on that up. And that's oftentimes where you'll get stuck. If I angle the pick upward, it's free. So I can do that up. So a lot of times the pick angle is going to make a difference on whether or not the pick is free to move to the next string or whether it gets stuck. Now, for those of you that know what economy picking is, if I angle it down, this is a nice thing when you're economy picking because I can go down, up, down, down, and push through. And there's a lot of players that do that where they economy pick. So it's down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. If I was to do this upward, that's not going to work. Right? I'm going to jump over if I do that. So the angle of the pick is relative to the way that you're trying to pick. So think about that a little bit.
Love it. Al Key says, can you comment on fretting hand wrist angle on low frets versus upper frets?
Fretting hand wrist angle on low frets versus upper frets.
Yeah.
Well, the angle is usually pretty brutal when it's down here, especially when you're short like me, right? And you're playing. When you move up, I don't know that the angle, well, I suppose it does, but I don't really know how to answer that. When I move up here and start playing, the angle is entirely different because my hand is at an entirely different angle to begin with, right? Where when I'm down here, I'm sitting more at this sort of angle to reach this. When I come up here, I'm sitting now at this angle to reach these things.
Right.
So, the one thing I will say is be sure you've got some space here if needed to be able to get up in here, to be able to play. If you sit playing like this, it's hard to get up in there and you run into your body, right? But I don't really know what I could say about the wrist because my wrist is constantly changing. Even if I'm sitting here and I'm playing like this and then I go into a chord and then I go into a blues thing, my wrist comes up. So my wrist is constantly in motion no matter what it is I'm doing.
Good. Thank you, Steve. Question from Lorraine. She says, do you have instructions for acoustic guitar or would this course apply? In other words, I think if I'm an acoustic only player, would essential techniques
again,
with this course
there are a lot of elements out of this course that would be acoustic only. a lot of these things that would apply to both acoustic and electric, but there are some things that I think would probably be more specific to electric just because of the style that it is. But for me, when I grab an acoustic guitar, I play it the same way I play an electric guitar. There's just certain things I can't do on an acoustic guitar because I'm not good enough, right? Where I do them on electric, they feel better. But when I grab an acoustic, I don't grab an acoustic guitar and play differently than I do on an electric guitar, other than the fact that they feel different. And there are some limitations on the acoustic for me, simply because I use, I'm a rock guy, so I tend to use a little distortion, things like that. But the majority of the course would be good for anybody, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Peter says, I've been playing since the 90s when strict alternate picking was all the craze. I find it difficult to revert to economy picking. This becomes problematic when incorporating sweeps. Any advice?
Well, there's two ways you can go with this. Number one, you either don't change what you're doing. And let me just explain this. When I was a kid, everything was legato picking because that's what people did back in the 80s, right? It was a lot of legato until like Malmsteen and Paul Gilbert and stuff came out. There was a lot of legato stuff. I was a big Iron Maiden fan, so Dave Murray and Adrian Smith would do a lot of legato, that kind of stuff. Randy Rhoads, all those kind of things. And then when alternate picking became a big deal, I had to relearn how to play. Now my playing is very much a trade-off between the two. I don't do one. It all happens kind of subconsciously, right? But I don't spend more time. Here's how I should say this. I don't make myself feel bad because I'm legato when somebody else is somebody else is picking, right? So let's just get that out of the way. The second thing is if you want to learn how to do sweeping, other than the fact of doing a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs, you just got to get in there and grind. You got to get in there and you just have to start learning how to do it. Even though you do a lot of alternate picking, you just have to practice. And the easiest way to do that with sweeping is start small. Just start with just a 2-finger thing. And then, just start developing small little elements before you start worrying about big sweeps and things like that.
Guys, we are bumping up on over an hour now. And still we have everybody's still hanging with us. So apparently you guys are into this, which is super cool for me and I think for Steve too. Before we go on though, because we do kind of try to keep these to an hour, I want to know a couple of things. One, Steve, how are you holding up, man?
Well, I got somewhere I need to be in a little while. I have probably 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. Guys, thank you so much for being here. You're awesome. We're going to hang out just for a few more minutes, give Steve a little buffer so he can get to where he needs to go. Steve, I want to thank you for being here, actually being live. We're doing this for the benefit of all of you. Our goal is to always provide, whenever you show up to one of these things, the very best instruction that we can, and that you walk away with something that you can go and improve your playing with. And regardless, if you decide to invest in Steve's new course, Essential Techniques, or not, we hope that you got value from this today. If you did, can you please let us know what's one thing that you got from today's session? Just post that, would be super cool. Just let us know if there's one thing that you got that would be really refreshing. Steve and I will go back and take a look at all your comments. I know we didn't get to all the questions. We did as many as we could, I think. But remember, if you came late or for any reason you didn't get to see the beginning one, or if you missed the previous one, we're going to put all of these for you on the Guitar Zoom YouTube channel in a nice playlist for you. You can go there and check it out. Everything we talked about today is from Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques. It's available at guitarzoom.com. It is applicable to you whether you like blues, rock, country, acoustic, electric, anything in between. There are just certain techniques that you need to know as a guitar player to become a better guitar player. And let's face it, the better you are, the more fun it is to play. So, Steve, I want to thank you again. I also want to let you guys know we're going to do another one of these on Friday. Yes? Pretty sure?
Say Friday. Yep.
Yeah, Friday. Friday's coming up. The guys posted the topics, which I can't find right now because there are so many questions. But anyway, it's going to be a super cool thing. Do you know what the next session is, Steve? I don't even know.
I think the next section was either songs or soloing. I don't remember which one it is.
Okay. Well, it'll be on technique. That's what we know. And thanks again, guys. And thank you for all of you who are already invested in the course. Really appreciate that. I saw a bunch of comments. People said, hey, I already got this and I'm ready to learn this particular thing. I can't wait to get started. Again, guys, it's on sale right now. Essential Techniques, available at guitarzoom.com, along with a lot of fast action bonuses. So if you'd like to check that out and you're interested in technique and improving in that, this is the course for you. It is Steve's newest one of 2020, never before seen. And so we're all super excited for you, Steve, and thanks for putting it together for us, and thanks for working so hard on it. I know it was a labor of love, my friend.
Yeah, I love teaching. I love when people learn. It's what I love most, actually.
I'll just say this because I know Steve on a personal level as well. I'll just tell a quick story, Steve. I don't want to embarrass you. Steve Stine is one of the most giving people I've ever been around in my life, and I'll give you one example. He and I met up in Los Angeles for the National Association of Music and Musicians, for NAMM.
Music Merchants. Yep.
Music Merchants, there you go. For NAMM. And anyway, there's like 25,000 people there, I think it was. It was a crazy amount of people. There's like multiple levels, and there's all different, every kind of musical instrument you can imagine. Every big brand is there. Steinway pianos had an entire floor. Gibson guitars had an entire floor almost. I mean, like everybody had their thing. And Steve and I was there with Steve, and I promise you, we're walking the floor, and we can't take 3 steps without someone saying, Steve Stine, and like running over and saying, hey, dude, can we get a selfie with you? And Steve sat and took time to take a picture with each person, to meet them, to greet them, and to have a conversation with them. And literally, I think we walked maybe, 15 meters in about an hour because we kept getting stopped, which was super cool for me to see because you and I don't get to be right next to each other in that environment. But once a year. And I was just super impressed by that, Stephen. I think it speaks to your character and how much you actually do care about people, which is just awesome. And all of us love you and thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I love the opportunity to be able to do this. I grew up teaching my whole life, and then to be able to do it on a global scale is just more than I could ask. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but your 5-minute soloing and 5-minute video on YouTube is already over 9 million views. Every time I look at that thing, it's like,
well, and that just shows sometimes we overthink things, Sometimes that just goes to show sometimes we overthink things.
That's absolutely true.
You got to focus in on smaller elements and not try and confuse ourselves so much.
Yeah. Well, people love that video, and people love all of this stuff. So thanks again, guys. It is an honor, a blessing, and a privilege to be with you. We will see you on Friday at the same time. Anything else to add, Steve?
No, I'm excited to, I already got notes. I just don't remember which one is coming this Friday, but I've been working on stuff to teach everybody, whether it's songs or whether it's soloing. So
that's awesome. I know you got to run, buddy. So guys, we'll see you at 10 a.m. Pacific, noon Central on Friday, October 16th. Check out the new course, Essential Techniques by Steve Stine at guitarzoom.com. All right, guys. Thanks again. See you Friday.
See you guys.
Bye,
Take
Steve.
care. Bye.
Thank you, my friend.